Welcome to the bad dream, where the nightmares come to life. Tonight, we dive deep into the chilling story of one of the most infamous figures in horror history, Michael Myers. From his haunting beginnings to the relentless killer he became, this is a tale of terror, madness, and pure evil. Stay with us as we unravel the history of Michael Myers, a nightmare you won't soon forget. Turn off the lights, sit back, and prepare yourself for the dark story that awaits. In the quiet and unsuspecting town of Haddonfield, Illinois, a seemingly ordinary child was born into an unsuspecting family. His name was Michael Myers. He had a blank stare, often misunderstood as shyness, but behind those eyes, something dark was lurking. His family had no idea that they were living with a boy destined to become the embodiment of evil itself. This is the story of how Michael Myers transformed from an innocent child into the cold-blooded killer who would haunt Haddonfield for generations. Michael's early life was disturbingly quiet. He didn't speak much, often playing by himself, detached from the world around him. He seemed to live in his own head, withdrawn, as if something inside him was growing, festering. The other children sensed there was something wrong, something off about Michael. And they were right. It was a cold Halloween night in 1963 when the darkness inside Michael finally erupted. He was just 6 years old. That night his parents were out, and his older sister Judith was supposed to be watching him. But Judith had her own plans that did not involve her little brother. As she ignored him, spending the evening with her boyfriend upstairs, Michael, wearing a clown costume, quietly took a kitchen knife. The sound of the blade sliding from the drawer seemed to echo through the empty house. He moved silently, as if guided by some unseen force, making his way up the stairs. Without hesitation, he entered his sister's room and stabbed her to death in a violent frenzy. His small hands grasped the knife with surprising strength, plunging it into her again and again. There was no remorse, no hesitation, just pure, unfeeling brutality. When Michael's parents arrived home, they found him standing outside, his clown costume drenched in blood, the knife hanging limply at his side. His face was expressionless, devoid of any emotion. The police arrived and took him into custody. It was as though the 6-year-old boy had vanished, replaced by something far more sinister. The Myers family was left shattered. But for Michael, that night was just the beginning. After the murder, Michael was sent to Smith's Grove Sanitarium, a mental institution. There he fell into an eerie, unbroken silence. For 15 years he did not speak, did not react, and showed no signs of rehabilitation. He simply stared into the void, day after day, never engaging with his doctors, nurses, or even other patients. His psychiatrist, Dr. Samuel Loomis, spent years trying to understand what had happened that night in 1963, but he soon realized that Michael was not just another disturbed child. Michael was something else entirely, something Loomis would come to describe as pure evil. Loomis saw it in his eyes, a deep, soulless blackness that frightened even him. Michael was no longer a boy. He had become a vessel of malevolent force. As the years passed, the world forgot about Michael Myers. But on October 30th, 1978, everything changed. The guards at Smith's Grove noticed something unusual about Michael that day. He seemed aware. For the first time in 15 years, there was movement in his eyes, a glimmer of something terrible stirring inside him. That night, as the staff was distracted, Michael made his move. He overpowered a nurse, stole her car, and escaped into the night, heading back to the one place he had always known, Haddonfield. Dr. Loomis immediately sounded the alarm. He knew what Michael was capable of. He knew that once Michael returned to Haddonfield, no one would be safe. On Halloween night, 1978, Michael arrived in Haddonfield, and the quiet suburban town would never be the same again. He was no longer the small boy who had killed his sister. He was a man now, but he had not changed. In fact, the evil inside him had only grown stronger. more malevolent. As he prowled the streets wearing a pale, emotionless mask, he became something otherworldly, a symbol of death. His first target was a group of teenagers, including Laurie Strode, a babysitter who would come to know the true meaning of terror. Laurie was just a regular high school girl, someone who had no idea what was lurking in the shadows that night. Michael began to stalk her, watching her every move from afar. At first, she thought it was her imagination, just the typical paranoia of being alone in the dark. But she was wrong. Michael was there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As night fell, the streets of Haddonfield grew eerily quiet. Michael moved like a ghost, silent and unseen, but always watching. His attacks were swift and brutal. One by one, he hunted down Laurie's friends, dispatching them with cold efficiency. His methods were simple, a knife in the dark, quick and lethal. Each time there was no emotion, no hesitation, just the cold, calculated movements of a killer who had perfected his craft. For Michael, this was not just killing. It was fulfilling his nature. Laurie soon found herself alone, trapped inside a house, with Michael relentlessly pursuing her. She fought back, using whatever she could to defend herself, but Michael was unstoppable. Even when she managed to stab him or knock him down, he would rise again, like a force of nature. It was as though death itself could not claim him. But Laurie was resilient. She fought for her life, and in the end, it was only the intervention of Dr. Loomis that saved her. Loomis arrived just in time, firing several shots into Michael, sending him falling from a second-story window. But when they looked outside, Michael was gone. He had disappeared into the night, leaving behind only a trail of death and terror. From that moment on, Michael Myers became more than just a man. He became a legend, a nightmare that haunted the people of Haddonfield every Halloween. Over the years, he would return time and time again, each time more brutal than the last. No matter how many times he was shot, stabbed, or burned, Michael always came back. It was as though he was fueled by something beyond the physical, something dark and supernatural. His legend only grew as he continued his killing spree, with each Halloween night adding to the body count. The people of Haddonfield lived in constant fear, knowing that Michael could return at any time. But what drove Michael? What kept him coming back year after year? Some say it was a curse, an ancient evil that had taken hold of him as a child. Others believe that Michael was simply born evil, a force of nature that could not be stopped or reasoned with. Dr. Loomis had his own theory, that Michael was not truly human. He was, in Loomis's words, pure evil, something that could not be killed or destroyed. Michael's silence, his emotionless mask, and his relentless pursuit of his victims all pointed to one thing. Michael Myers was more than just a man. He was the embodiment of death itself. To this day, Michael Myers remains a figure of terror. His legacy is one of blood and fear, and every Halloween the people of Haddonfield wonder, will this be the year that Michael returns? The mask, the knife, the cold, dead eyes, they have become symbols of an evil that can never be contained. And as long as Michael Myers walks the earth, no one is safe. The Boogeyman is real, and he wears a mask.